The autumn wind howled through the Montana woods as Tom Reed finished his last rounds in the barn. His weathered hands gently stroked the neck of an old mare he had just treated for colic. At 42, he had spent the last 15 years as the only veterinarian within 50 miles of this remote stretch of wilderness. "There you go, girl. You'll feel better by morning," he murmured, his voice carrying the gentle tone he used with all his patience. The mare nickered softly in response, her eyes already showing signs of improvement. Tom stepped out into the chilly evening air, his boots crunching on fallen leaves. The setting sun painted the sky in shades of orange and purple, a sight he never tired of seeing. Living alone had its perks: the peaceful solitude, the untamed beauty of nature, and the simple satisfaction of helping the animals in his care. That's when he saw it, a streak of blue-white light cutting across the darkening sky. At first, he thought it was a meteor, but meteors didn't change direction. This light zigzagged, almost like it was trying to maintain control, before disappearing behind a tree line with a distant crash that shook the ground beneath his feet. Most people would have called the authorities. Tom wasn't most people. Years of treating injured animals had taught him that sometimes minutes made the difference between life and death. He grabbed his medical bag, flashlight, and emergency kit from his truck and headed into the woods. The crash site wasn't hard to find. Broken branches and scorched earth marked a trail leading to a small clearing. What Tom found there made him stop in his tracks. Half buried in the soft earth was a sleek, silver object about the size of a small bus. It didn't look damaged so much as it appeared to have made a controlled crash landing. "Hello," he called out, approaching cautiously. "Anyone hurt in there?" A section of the smooth metal surface suddenly became transparent, revealing a dimly lit interior. Tom's heart nearly stopped when he saw her. Through the clear panel, he could make out a humanoid figure, easily 8 feet tall, slumped over what looked like a control panel. Her skin had a silvery sheen that seemed to shimmer even in the low light, and faint iridescent markings traced patterns along her exposed arms. Without hesitation, Tom searched for a way in. His fingers found a slight depression in the hull, and to his surprise, a door silently slid open. The interior smelled like ozone and something sweet he couldn't identify. The alien woman was unconscious but breathing. At least he assumed the slow rise and fall of her chest was breathing. Her features were remarkably human-like, though more angular, with high cheekbones and long silvery hair that seemed to float slightly as if in water. A nasty gash on her forehead leaked a substance that looked like liquid mercury. Tom's veterinary instincts took over. Different species or not, an injured patient was an injured patient. He pulled out his medical scanner, a gift from a wealthy client that had saved more than a few animal lives, and began checking her vital signs. The readings were unlike anything he'd seen before, but they were consistent, which suggested she was stable. "All right," he muttered to himself, carefully cleaning the head wound. "I've treated everything from hamsters to horses. I suppose an 8-foot alien woman isn't that much of a stretch." As he worked, the ship's interior lights flickered uncertainly. The temperature was dropping rapidly with nightfall, and Tom knew he couldn't leave her here. After ensuring she was stable enough to move, he rigged up a makeshift stretcher using emergency blankets and equipment from his truck. Getting her to his house was a challenge, but years of handling large animals had given him the strength and technique needed. As he finally settled her onto the spare bed in his clinic room, Tom couldn't help but shake his head at the situation. "Well," he said to his old dog Max, who had been watching the whole process with curious eyes, "I guess this is going to be an interesting week." Max wagged his tail in agreement, while Tom began setting up monitoring equipment. Whatever happened next, he knew his life would never be the same. Tom hadn't slept all night. He sat in his clinic chair, monitoring the strange readings on his medical equipment, while occasionally checking the alien woman's silvery skin for any changes. Max, his faithful dog, hadn't left his usual spot by the door, his ears perking up at every small sound. Around dawn, The alien woman's breathing pattern changed. Her iridescent markings began to pulse with a soft blue light. Tom leaned forward, medical scanner ready, as her eyes fluttered open. They were remarkable, deep purple with specks of silver that seemed to swirl like galaxies. She sat up quickly, then grabbed her head with a grimace. Tom raised his hands in what he hoped was a universal gesture of peace. "Easy there," he said softly, using the same calm voice he used with spooked horses. "You've had a rough night." The alien woman stared at him, her head tilting slightly. Then she touched a small device on her wrist that Tom hadn't noticed before. A gentle hum filled the room. "You helped me." Her voice had a musical quality to it, like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. The words were perfect English, though her lips moved slightly out of sync with the sound. "Yes, I found your ship in the woods. You had a nasty cut on your head." Tom gestured to his own forehead to demonstrate. "I'm Tom Reed, by the way. I'm a veterinarian, a doctor for animals." The alien woman touched her forehead, finding the bandage there. "A healer of multiple species. Fascinating." She looked around the clinic room, taking in the various medical equipment. "I should introduce myself. My name in my language would be difficult for you, but in your terms, you may call me Rose." "Rose," Tom repeated, relieved at the simple name. "How are you feeling?" "My neural patterns are stabilizing, thanks to your intervention." She swung her long legs off the bed, ducking slightly to avoid hitting her head on the ceiling. "Though I admit I'm surprised to be alive. My ship's systems were failing, and I expected, well, a less pleasant outcome." Max chose that moment to approach, tail wagging cautiously. Rose's eyes widened with interest. "Ah, a Canis lupus familiaris. I've studied Earth's species from afar, but I've never been this close to one." She knelt down, still towering over Max, who sniffed her hand before giving it a friendly lick. "Remarkable. The bonding behaviors are just as our research suggested." Tom watched in amazement as his normally cautious dog rolled over, offering his belly to the alien visitor. He usually takes days to warm up to strangers. "Animals often sense more than humans give them credit for," Rose said, gently scratching Max's belly. "On my world, we lost most of our wildlife to over-industrialization centuries ago. That's partly why I became a xenobiologist, to study the amazing diversity of other worlds." She stood up, swaying slightly. Tom quickly grabbed his stool and offered it to her. "Thank you," she said, sitting down. "I must also thank you for treating me with such care." Many species would have reacted differently to finding an alien crash survivor. Well, when you've spent as much time as I have treating everything from tiny kittens to full-grown horses, you learn that every living thing deserves help when they need it. Tom checked her bandage with practiced efficiency. "Though I admit, you're my first alien patient." Rose laughed, a sound like silver bells. "And you're my first. What was your term?" "Veterinarian." "To be honest, I'm quite impressed. Your medical techniques are surprisingly effective despite their simplicity." "Sometimes the simple solutions are the best ones," Tom replied, noting with satisfaction that the wound was healing remarkably fast. "Now, would you like some breakfast? I'm not sure what you eat, but I make a pretty mean omelette." "I would be honored to try Earth cuisine," Rose said, her eyes sparkling with genuine curiosity. "Though perhaps first, we should discuss why I crashed, and who might be looking for me." After breakfast, which Rose found surprisingly enjoyable, Tom received an emergency call from a local ranch. One of their horses was having difficulty giving birth. Rose's eyes lit up when he mentioned this. "May I observe?" she asked, her silver skin shimmering with excitement. "I studied Earth's mammals, but I've never witnessed a birth firsthand." Tom scratched his chin thoughtfully. "Well, the ranch is pretty isolated. If we're careful, and you wear some of my spare coveralls." He glanced at her tall frame. "Though they might be a bit short on you." 20 minutes later, they were in Tom's truck, with Rose wearing his largest set of coveralls that now looked more like capri pants on her. She had adjusted her skin tone to a more human-like shade, though it still had an unusual sheen to it. "Your ability to treat multiple species is remarkable," Rose said as they drove. "On my world, each doctor specializes in treating a single type of creature. The idea of understanding the medical needs of so many different animals, it's unprecedented." Tom chuckled. "It's not that impressive. Most living things have similar basic needs: pain relief, proper nutrition, comfort. The details might be different, but caring is universal." They arrived at the ranch, and Tom quickly explained Rose away as a visiting specialist from a university. The ranchers, more concerned with their horse than asking questions, simply nodded and led them to the barn. Inside, a beautiful mare lay on her side, clearly in distress. Tom quickly assessed the situation while Rose watched intently from a respectful distance. "The foal's turned wrong," Tom explained as he worked, his voice calm and steady. "Sometimes they get twisted around, and we need to help them get positioned right." His hands moved with gentle confidence, guided by years of experience. Rose moved closer, her eyes wide with fascination. "On my world, we would use molecular restructuring beams for this. But your manual technique, it's so precise, so careful." Tom smiled as he worked. Sometimes technology can get in the way. Animals respond to touch, to presence. They know when someone's trying to help. As if to prove his point, the mare nickered softly as he adjusted the foal's position. Rose watched in amazement as Tom guided the foal into the world. His movements were sure but gentle, his voice constantly soothing both mother and baby. When the foal finally emerged, Rose couldn't contain her wonder. "Extraordinary," she exclaimed, forgetting to modulate her voice. "The immediate bonding behavior, the rapid adaptation to external environment, the instant muscular coordination attempts, it's incredible." The ranchers gave her an odd look, but Tom smoothly intervened. "Academic researchers," he said with a shrug. "They get excited about the details." On the drive back, Rose was practically buzzing with questions. "Your methods are so different from ours, but they're remarkably effective. We've become so dependent on our technology that we've lost this kind of connection." Tom nodded. "Technology's great, but there's no replacement for understanding your patient. Every creature has its own way of telling you what's wrong, if you learn to listen." "That's what I've been trying to tell my people," Rose said quietly. "We've advanced so far in some ways, but we've lost something important along the way. That's partly why She suddenly went silent. Tom glanced at her. "Why you what?" Rose's expression grew serious. "Why I ran away. I'm not just a xenobiologist, Tom. I'm the head researcher of biological studies for the Stellar Collective. And I was supposed to be married tomorrow, to unite two scientific houses in a political alliance that would have ended my independent research forever." Tom absorbed this information as they pulled into his driveway. "That's quite a secret you've been keeping." "There's more," Rose said, her markings pulsing with worry. "And you need to know, because they'll be coming to find me soon." Tom stared at his coffee mug while Rose explained her situation. The morning sun streamed through his kitchen window, making her silvery skin shimmer. "The marriage was arranged by the High Council," she said, her markings pulsing with dark blue streaks of worry. "They want to combine our research divisions under a single authority, one that would focus solely on military applications. And you didn't want that," Tom said, understanding in his voice. "No, my work is about understanding life, not finding ways to end it." Rose stood up, ducking to avoid the ceiling. "But they won't just let me go. The Stellar Collective doesn't accept defiance from its leaders." As if on cue, Max started barking outside. Tom moved to the window and froze. 3 sleek ships, smaller than Rose's but clearly of similar design, were descending from the clouds. "They're here," Rose whispered. "Tracker units. They must have followed my ship's energy trail." Tom's mind raced. "The old mine tunnels," he said suddenly. "There's a network of them under these hills. The metals in the rock interfere with most scanning equipment. That's why we can't use cell phones out here. Rose's eyes widened. That might work. Our scanners do have trouble with certain mineral formations. She touched her wrist device, and her skin shifted to match the color of the cave walls Tom had described. They slipped out the back door just as the ships landed in the front field. Tom grabbed his veterinary bag, force of habit, and led Rose into the woods. Max followed silently, years of hunting training keeping him quiet. They had barely reached the mine entrance when a voice boomed across the valley, amplified by advanced technology. Head researcher Rose, by order of the High Council, you will return to fulfill your duties. This primitive world has no legal standing with the collective. Resist, and we may classify it as a hostile environment. Tom helped Rose duck into the mine entrance. They're threatening Earth, he whispered, anger clear in his voice. Standard intimidation tactics, Rose replied as they moved deeper into the tunnels. They consider less advanced worlds expendable. Tom's knowledge of the tunnel system proved invaluable. He led them through a maze of passages, using old mining markers to navigate. Rose's natural bioluminescence provided just enough light to see. These tunnels are remarkable, Rose said, her scientific curiosity showing even in their dire situation. The mineral composition is unlike anything in our database. A distant rumble made them stop. They're using sonic mapping, Rose explained, her markings pulsing with anxiety. They'll find us eventually. Tom thought quickly. Years of treating frightened animals had taught him about hiding and escape. The old vertical shaft, he said. It connects to the river cave system. The running water should mask our trail completely. As they changed direction, Rose touched his arm. Tom, you should leave. This isn't your fight. They might hurt you. Tom smiled in the dim light. I've been kicked by horses and bitten by scared dogs. I don't scare easy. Besides, I took an oath to help those in need. Doesn't matter if they're from this planet or not. Rose's markings pulsed with a warm pink color he hadn't seen before. Before she could respond, Max's ears perked up. Moments later, they heard the sound of boots on stone. They're getting closer, Tom whispered. But I know these caves better than anyone. And I've got a plan. How do your people feel about bats? Rose's expression shifted to confusion. Bats? Trust me, Tom said, reaching into his medical bag. Sometimes the best defense is a little chaos. Tom pulled a small bottle from his medical bag as they crouched in the darkness of the cave tunnel. This is bat attractant, he whispered. I use it to help relocate colonies when they get into people's attics. Rose's markings flickered with interest. You can control their behavior with chemicals. Not control exactly, but bats follow scent trails to find their roosts. And there's a huge colony in the upper chamber. Tom grinned. How good is your people's armor against small flying animals? Understanding dawned in Rose's purple eyes. Our combat suits are designed to repel energy weapons and projectiles. But thousands of small flying creatures, she paused. That's brilliantly primitive. Sometimes the old ways work best. Tom handed Max a piece of cloth with the scent on it. Go on, boy. You know where. Max took the cloth and disappeared down a side tunnel, his training as a hunting dog making him silent as a shadow. Tom had spent years teaching him to navigate these caves. They heard the pursuit team getting closer. Their boots made metallic sounds on the stone floor, and their lights swept through the tunnels. Target located. A mechanical-sounding voice called out. Surrender now, head researcher. Tom pulled out a small ultrasonic device from his bag. Cover your ears, he warned Rose. This is going to get loud. He activated the device, another tool he used for working with bats, and the effect was immediate. The cave filled with the sound of thousands of leathery wings as bats poured out of the upper chambers, following the scent trail Max had laid straight toward their pursuers. The organized search party dissolved into chaos. The pursuers' energy weapons were useless against the swarm of small, fast-moving targets. Their armored suits, designed to deflect attacks, became a hindrance as bats flew into every gap and crevice. "Fall back," they heard someone shout. "These primitive creatures are interfering with our sensors." Rose watched in amazement as the highly trained stellar collective forces retreated from what they had dismissed as simple wildlife. "You turned their advanced technology against them," she said, admiration clear in her voice. "Nature always finds a way," Tom replied. "Now comes part two." He pulled out his phone and showed her a weather radar app. "See that storm coming in? In these caves, rain means something else." Right on cue, they heard the distant sound of rushing water. The autumn storm had started, and the cave system was doing what it had done for millions of years, channeling water through its ancient passages. "The lower tunnels flood during heavy rain," Tom explained. "Their fancy suits might handle water, but they don't know these caves. They'll have to retreat to their ships or risk getting trapped." Rose's markings pulsed with bright colors. "You've turned this entire cave system into a weapon, using nothing but your knowledge of its natural behavior." "Not a weapon," Tom corrected her. "Just working with nature instead of against it. Speaking of which," he whistled softly, and Max appeared from another tunnel, tail wagging. The sound of the pursuit team's rushed evacuation echoed through the caves, mixed with the rising sound of floodwater. Tom led them up to a higher tunnel he knew would stay dry. "They'll be back," Rose said, watching water begin to flow past their position. "The collective doesn't give up easily. Neither do country vets," Tom replied with a smile. "And I've got more tricks up my sleeve. Did you know these hills are also home to one of the largest skunk populations in Montana?" Rose's laughter echoed through the caves, mixing with the sound of water and distant, frustrated shouts. For the first time since she crashed, she felt real hope, not because of advanced technology or political power, but because of one human's simple wisdom and courage. The storm raged outside as Tom and Rose waited in the high tunnel. Max lay between them, ears alert for any sound of pursuit. They had spent hours moving through the cave system, staying one step ahead of the search parties. "They've called for reinforcements," Rose said, checking her wrist device. "A diplomatic ship is entering Earth's atmosphere. The High Council themselves are coming." Tom raised an eyebrow. "Seems like a lot of trouble for one runaway scientist." "It's not just about me anymore." Rose's markings pulsed with determination. "You've shown me something they need to see. Your world, your ways. They're different, but they work. Sometimes better than our advanced methods." The cave trembled as something large landed nearby. Rose's device lit up with multiple signals. "That's the High Council's ship," she said. "We should." A voice boomed through the cave system, enhanced by technology, but carrying natural authority. "Head researcher Rose, this defiance has gone far enough. Come out and meet us under peaceful terms." Rose straightened up, her 8-foot frame nearly touching the cave ceiling. "That's Council Leader Ben. He's actually reasonable, compared to most." Tom thought for a moment. "Then let's talk to him. But on our terms, not theirs." They emerged from the cave system carefully. The storm had passed, leaving the air clean and crisp. In Tom's front field stood an impressive ship, its surface gleaming with an otherworldly shine. Before it stood 3 tall figures in ornate robes, their silvery skin marked with complex patterns that seemed to shift in the sunlight. "Ah, head researcher," the central figure said, his voice now at a normal volume. "I see your time among primitives has not improved your judgment." Tom stepped forward, ignoring the implied insult. "With respect, sir, I think you're missing something important here." The council leader turned to him, surprise evident on his angular features. "The primitive speaks to us directly." "Interesting." He studied Tom carefully. "Very well. Local healer. What are we missing?" "Look around you." Tom gestured to the landscape. "Your ships scattered my neighbor's cattle. They're calming themselves by grouping together. Those birds overhead. They're warning others about your presence. Every creature here knows how to adapt, to work with what nature gives them. just like Rose has been trying to teach her people. Our technology has moved beyond such basic instincts, one of the other council members said dismissively. Has it? Rose stepped forward. Then why couldn't your search teams handle a few thousand small flying mammals? Why did cave water defeat your advanced suits? This primitive world has survived millions of years without any technology at all. Maybe we're the ones who need to learn something. The council leader's markings flickered with what might have been amusement. You suggest the Stellar Collective should take lessons from an undeveloped world. I suggest, Rose said firmly, that true advancement means knowing when to use technology and when to trust older, simpler ways. Tom treated my injuries without any advanced tools. He protects and heals multiple species without molecular scanners or neural interfaces. There's wisdom here that we've forgotten. To everyone's surprise, the council leader laughed. Fascinating. You ran away to avoid a political marriage, and instead found evidence supporting your research theories. He turned to his companions. Perhaps we have become too rigid in our thinking. What are you suggesting? The other council members asked simultaneously. I'm suggesting, the council leader said, his markings glowing with interest, that instead of forcing a political marriage, we might benefit more from establishing a research outpost here. Under head researcher Rose's continued leadership, of course. Rose's markings burst into bright, joyful colors. You mean, consider your arranged marriage canceled, the council leader said. I believe you found a much more valuable alliance right here. 6 months had passed since the confrontation in Tom's front field. The old Miller barn at the edge of his property had been converted into something extraordinary. The first interstellar veterinary research center on Earth. From the outside, it still looked like a regular barn, but the inside was a perfect blend of advanced alien technology and good old-fashioned country veterinary practice. Tom walked through the main treatment area, where Rose was using a combination of traditional bandages and healing energy fields to treat an injured mountain lion. Her 8-foot frame moved with practiced ease around the examination table, her silvery skin gleaming under the soft lights. The earth bandages helped the animal feel secure, Rose explained to a group of alien researchers who were watching in fascination. While our healing fields speed up recovery, the physical contact and familiar materials reduce stress. It's a perfect example of combining our methods. Tom smiled as he remembered how quickly things had changed. The Stellar Collective had officially recognized Earth as a protected research site, with their facilities serving as the first official contact point between the two civilizations. More importantly, they had recognized the value of Earth's primitive but effective methods. Tom, Rose called out, her markings glowing with warm colors when she saw him. Come show our visitors how you calm large predators without using neural suppressors. He demonstrated his techniques, explaining how body language and voice tone could do what technology sometimes couldn't. The alien researchers took eager notes, their markings pulsing with excitement at each new discovery. You see, Rose told her colleagues, Earth's creatures have developed complex behaviors over millions of years. Understanding these natural patterns can be more effective than trying to override them with technology. Later that evening, as the sunset painted the Montana sky in beautiful colors, Tom and Rose sat on the porch of his house. Max lay at their feet, completely comfortable with his alien friend now. The council sent another message today, Rose said, her markings showing contentment. They're implementing our combined treatment protocols across 3 star systems. Apparently, using simple physical examinations alongside molecular scans is revolutionizing their medical practices. Tom laughed. Who would have thought that a country vet's methods would end up helping aliens? I did, Rose said softly. The moment you helped me without hesitation, despite how different I was, I knew there was something special here. She paused, her markings shifting to a gentle pink color. Not just in the medical knowledge, but in you. Tom reached over and took her hand, something that had become natural over the months. You know, when I first found you in that crash, I never expected any of this. I was just doing what I always do, helping someone in need. And that's exactly why it worked, Rose said. Your simple kindness showed us a better way. Not everything needs advanced technology. Sometimes all you need is compassion and understanding. In the distance, they could see the lights of another alien ship descending, more researchers coming to study Earth's wildlife and learn their methods. The barn/research center glowed softly in the gathering dusk, a symbol of two worlds coming together. So, Tom said with a smile, ready for tomorrow. I heard they're bringing in some injured alien creatures for us to treat. Rose's markings sparkled with joy. As long as we're working together, I'm ready for anything. As the stars began to appear in the darkening sky, they sat in comfortable silence. The 8-foot alien woman and the country vet had not only found each other, they had helped bridge two worlds. And they had done it not with advanced technology or complex politics, but with something far simpler and more powerful: understanding, compassion, and love. Max wagged his tail in agreement, and somewhere in the distance, a wolf howled at the rising moon. Just another perfect evening in their extraordinary new life.